Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to DeProgram. It's Saturday, June 14th. It's 12 noon on the East Coast. I'm Ted Rall here with John Kiriakou to break down and deprogram you from all the stories that are going on today. Obviously, there's the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. John and I are going to be breaking that down for you. There's a pair of assassinations and a pair of attempted assassinations in the state of Minnesota. They look political. We're going to be getting into that. Has domestic political violence finally decided to manifest itself here for the first time since the new president came on in a major way. And we're going to be talking about privacy with a privacy expert. And we're going to be talking about something that we're all going to be kind of doing together here. I'll just leave that like that. Big protests coming out all over the country. The No Kings protest as a counterpoint to the protests in to the military parade in Washington D.C., where it's President Trump's birthday and it's the 250th birthday of the United States Army. So there's going to be all sorts of tanks and heavy gear tearing up the streets of Washington D.C. I know this drives John crazy.
It drives me crazy. I drove through. I drove through town as best I could today, and it's just almost not possible. Every major thoroughfare is closed. They've got dump trucks and snow plows and cop cars, and every major road is closed. It's outrageous.
And just you wait, the road repairs are going to linger for weeks and even months, right? So that's the real problem in terms of disruption of traffic in Washington. So, but we're not, there's not really anything to talk about there because, they haven't happened yet. I'm going to predict like somewhat lower than expected turnout here in New York City because the weather is somber, gray, and a bit rainy. As I was joking to John before we came on, these are Democrats. So, if they were storming the Winter Palace, they would cancel it because it was a little brisk there in St. Petersburg. Anyway, so John, let's get straight into the latest out of the Middle East. Shall I or shall you?
Well, yeah, if you don't mind, I'll give it
Please.
I'll give it a start. So the Israelis, I think, have been surprised that the Iranians have been able to respond as quickly and easily as they have. But first, I want to talk about what the Israelis have done. We're getting a little bit more information about how the Israelis kicked this thing off. And the bottom line is, and I'm gonna do this like a Pentagon briefing where you put the bottom line up first. The Iranians have a serious, devastating espionage problem in their country. The Israelis apparently threatened the men that they ended up assassinating in the days before they launched the first strike. They slipped death threats under their apartment doors. Can you imagine this?
Wow.
They called them on their cell phones to say, "We're going to kill you." And they called their wives on their cell phones to say, "We're going to kill your husband." And then they killed them.
Why? And did they not take precautions after? Well, what was the purpose of the warning? If you're trying to kill someone, why warn them?
It was just to instill terror. That's really what it was. So besides the fact that the Israelis had these guys' cell phones and were able to sort of zero in on their cell phones, they have a network on the ground in Iran that they can use to do things like this.
So how come the Iranians haven't learned, first of all, from the Hezbollah pager attacks?
Right.
And how come the Iranians haven't learned from the nuclear scientist remote control machine gun attack?
Arrogance. You know what, Ted? Otherwise, I just can't figure it. I get the whole machismo thing, like, I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of your technology. Okay, yeah, and then you're dead a day later. So, listen, you got to take
these were not stupid people.
No, these were the best and brightest in the country. Yeah. So anyway, yesterday, the Iranians hit the Ministry of Defense in Jerusalem. They hit one anti-aircraft battery in Tel Aviv. Those were pretty significant direct hits. And they've hit a couple of residential areas. Now, I saw something that was very interesting on X, that Americans are complaining that the Iranians are bombing residential areas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Israelis have placed their anti-aircraft batteries in residential areas. So they're essentially using their own people as human shields.
Gee, where did I hear that? Who did I hear complaining about that kind of behavior? Not too long ago, maybe around October or November of 2023. Who was that again? Oh, I remember. It was the
That's
Israelis
right.
complaining about Hamas doing the same thing in Gaza.
That's exactly right.
Of course, Israel's not nearly as densely populated as Gaza is. Not nearly. So, I mean, with Hamas, it was kind of like, where do you want us to put it? Like, out in our big national park,
right? Exactly. Exactly. And to me, this is the big news today, Ted. The Speaker of Iran's parliament says that the Israelis have reached out through a third country. We don't know what that country is, but you and I were speculating Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates. It has to be one of those three. To ask the Iranians to please stop bombing us. Now, can you imagine that? The Israelis asking the Iranians, please stop bombing us. I believe the reason for that is twofold. Number one, the Israelis believed that they had delivered a knockout shot, and they hadn't. We know that there's a leak, a nuclear leak at Natanz. They took out the military and nuclear leadership, but the Iranians are still launching and launching and launching over and over again. Remember, the population of Iran is 9 times that of Israel. This is a very big country. They can't take it over. They can't knock it out.
There's no way. There's no possibility of a ground invasion. No,
that's right.
I mean, not to mention the geography, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Not to mention the geography. Yeah. And secondly, 3 weeks ago, and I don't know why so few outlets paid much attention to this, but 3 weeks ago, Vladimir Putin said in an interview that Iran fell under the Russian nuclear umbrella. What that means is if the Israelis attack Iran with nuclear weapons, the Russians would be compelled to attack Israel with nuclear weapons.
Do they have a mutual defense treaty?
They do have a mutual defense treaty. It was signed less than a year ago.
Okay.
And so that takes away that, that final threat that the Israelis otherwise would have used. So now what do? Do you just stop attacking each other and the whole thing's over just like that? It's possible. Or do you continue fighting, but fight with what you have, drones and ballistic missiles?
John, I'm wondering if your thoughts went to the Kosovo War. I was kind of like thinking, well, this has to be an aerial war, no matter how long it lasts. That's all it can be, is an exchange of missiles and possibly fighter jets, and that's it.
Right. That's it.
And so that could go on for quite some time, right? I mean,
very much so.
How credible do you think the reports are that the Israelis are whinging like little wusses after they started it?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. I mean, do you think that's likely? I mean, surely. I mean, the Israelis again are not stupid. They, as demonstrated by their intelligence coup,
right?
They had to know there was going to be retaliation.
Sure, they did, but
they knew they could handle most of it.
But I don't think they expected it to be ongoing. I think that they really believed that the Iranians would crumble. You're just like the neocons, Ted. Everybody thinks that all Iranians hate their government, and at the first sign of trouble, the whole thing is going to collapse upon itself, and there's going to be freedom and milk and honey flowing in the streets. And that's just not true.
Historically, that's never happened.
No.
Even studies of the final year of the Nazi regime in Germany, aerial bombardment brought the German people closer to the government.
That's
right. I mean, the way I used to always explain it is, your neighbor's apartment building is on fire. They saw the RAF plane fly away, and the firefighter who shows up in the fire truck shows up with a truck that has a swastika on it. Who do you like better?
There it is.
It
wasn't the Nazis bombing Dresden.
No. And it doesn't mean that the regime was popular by that point. But, look, it's the same thing here. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. I've never voted for a Republican in my life. If there were an attack by some other country and we all had to pull together to fight them off, as a patriotic American, I would take orders from Donald Trump enthusiastically. And I think that's just human nature anywhere.
Look at the way we all pulled together after September 11th. I even went so far, and I would never do this. I went so far as to go to Walmart and buy one of those American flag stickers and put it in the rear windshield of my car.
Did I?
And even my dad said, a flag? You? Seriously?
That's what people told me. And, and the thing is, let's not forget, right? Just 9 months earlier, the Supreme Court had settled a very contentious case, about Bush v. Gore. Bush was viewed as on September 10th. 38% of Americans thought that that Bush had been installed in an illegal judicial coup d'état.
You're absolutely right.
2 weeks later, he has a 91% approval rating.
You are absolutely right.
That's what happens. And nobody ever talked about Bush v. Gore again after 9/11, even though the popularity of, his popularity in terms of invading Iraq was where things really.
That's right. It tanked. We've got a couple of really good questions.
Sure.
Ted. I know we're pressed for time today, but I think we have to talk. Adrian is saying, did Trump ever want a deal? Some people say that this was Pentagon decisions and Trump had to agree. And then Lulu3 says, can we talk about Trump boasting about tricking Iran? Those questions are very closely tied, I think, because Donald Trump, in my view, was trying to play both sides of this. And he has failed because he can't keep his mouth shut. So here he is saying, I'm the one who could bring peace to the region, and we're so close to a deal, and a deal is going to happen. And then the Israelis start bombing, and he begins cackling at the Iranians and saying, well, if they don't sign this deal, it's going to be hell on earth. It's going to be an attack beyond anything they've ever seen. That's not helpful. None of that is helpful, to say stupid stuff like that.
It is stupid. I read that as, him trying to basically get on board what he thought was a winning train that he had been against leaving the station in the first place.
That's right. That is right. Yeah, and Adrian's follow-up comment is very important as well. MAGA voted for him to avoid a war. That's exactly why they voted for him. That's exactly what differentiated him from the neoconservatives.
Yeah,
to get us out of these meaningless.
This was a guy who ran in a Republican primary in 2016 against the stupid war in Iraq.
That's it,
and against stupid wars in general, and said that we should be spending our money here at home. Basically, I thought he resurrected the Pat Buchanan wing of the GOP that had been long dormant.
That's right.
And then here we are, and it's a mistake, right? It's basically just like he just didn't. I mean, I don't think he wants this. He just can't help himself.
I agree.
He just can't shut up.
He can't. He can't help himself. And I use the word cackling on purpose. That's what he's doing here. He's just cackling at the Iranians. And so the statement the other day that, well, there's another round of talks scheduled in Muscat on Saturday morning. There aren't going to be any talks. What are you talking about? Nobody's going to go to the negotiating table in the midst of a hot war where they're exchanging ballistic missile attacks. And you've just assassinated the entire military leadership. No, that's just not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Wow. Well, so shall we move to the situation in Minnesota?
Yeah,
so
this is nuts.
This is a crazy story. So I woke up this morning to hear that there had been an act of apparent political violence in Minnesota. So for people who aren't familiar with Minnesota politics, there used to be 100 years ago a lot of powerful third parties in America. And most of them are gone now, the old Socialist Party, the old Populist Party, and so on, the Progressive Party. But one of the vestigial remnants of that is the old Farmer Labor Party, which itself had formed from the merger of the Labor Party and the Farmers Party in Minnesota. Minnesota is a place where populism is very, it still has deep roots just next door to Wisconsin, where Fighting Bob La Follette was from.
That's right.
Iowa also. That whole region is agrarian populist. And so at one point, so instead of going away completely, the FDL merged with the Democratic Party. And today, when Minnesotans go to the polls, they get a choice between the Republican Party and the Democratic Farmer Labor Party.
That's right.
And it's not completely just on paper. I mean, it's spiritual mostly. Basically, they're Democrats, but they're a little bit to the left of the Democrats, right?
Yes.
And so there are two top-ranking FDL politicians in state politics in Minnesota. There's the Speaker Emerita, a woman, and then there's a high-ranking state senator. Last night,
that's right,
someone dressed as a police officer. I say dressed as a police officer. I mean, Harvey Milk, call your office. It might have been a police officer. We just don't know. But someone dressed as a police officer. We don't know. The authorities are claiming it's not, that it was an imposter, which is entirely possible too. Went to her house and shot her and her husband to death, and then went over to another community. These are both suburbs of Minneapolis, and killed both. Shot and wounded the senator and his wife, who are both still alive at this point. I'm not sure about their condition.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll recover quickly. And then he got into a gunfight with the authorities, with the local police, and made his escape. Is currently on the loose, and those communities are in lockdown. Locals are being asked to stay home while this person is hunted. It reminded me a little bit of the situation in the Boston metro area after the Boston Marathon bombings and the Tsarnaev brothers. So. And so that's the situation now. Now, I did a search and to try to figure out, could there be any kind of romantic involvement here, love triangle? There was a New Jersey state legislator who was assassinated a few years ago. That turned out to be a romantic intrigue thing.
Right.
I don't think there's any sign of that here. It looks like the only two things that these two people have in common is that they are both top-ranking FDL people and legislators. So, I mean, obviously this is pure speculation, but that's what shows like this are for. It looks like political violence, right? I think we're gonna find that this is a right-winger who targeted both of these individuals for their politics. Now, of course, I could totally be wrong. Could be a left-winger. I don't know. I mean, Gabby Giffords was shot by a Democrat. A Bernie Sanders supporter shot a congressman at the congressional softball game. So you just never know. But the point is, what do you think?
In my mind, I feel like we're re-entering the period of 1968 to 1972 when this was happening all over the place. In 1968, Robert F. Kennedy was shot and killed. Martin Luther King was shot and killed. In 72, George Wallace was shot and paralyzed. Even as late as March of 1981, Ronald Reagan was shot and almost killed right here in Washington. And then we went through this period where, that kind of thing just didn't happen. And in 75, President Ford was shot at twice by two different women within 2 weeks of each other.
Right. One with my favorite name of any soon to become public figure.
Squeaky Fromm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, beat that.
Just I'm going to shut this light off. This is apropos of nothing, but Squeaky Fromm lives now in upstate New York with some truck driver who used to write to her when she was in prison. And she was spotted.
I would sleep lightly if she were my wife.
She was spotted recently at a Walmart up there. And somebody asked her, "Are you Squeaky Fromm? Can I have your autograph?" And she just said, "Fuck you," and got into a pickup truck and drove away.
I don't really blame her. It's like, she's probably just trying to keep a low profile, right?
Yeah. So anyway, it seems like we've re-entered this period where people conclude that it's okay to shoot and kill political figures with whom they disagree on issues, and it's not okay. It's nuts. What frightens me is that at least so far, and of course the investigation is very early. We don't have any idea who this guy is in Minnesota, and he's a multiple murderer now already.
Yeah, and I mean, it could get worse if the injuries get worse, and not to mention, if he's not apprehended soon and hopefully peacefully, and I hope he's taken into custody and alive, so that we find out exactly what this is all about. No, I mean, the thing is also, I want to be clear here. I was talking to a friend of mine about this morning, and he pointed out, this is both, the rhetoric on both sides has been way overheated and way overcharged.
You're absolutely right.
Democrats and Republicans are each calling one another like traitors, enemy of the state, coup leaders, anti-American, just the worst stuff in the world. And if you do that over and over and over, some people are just going to, you can't blame them for these are political leaders. I'll do something about it. I'm going to take up arms and take out the trash.
I actually wrote an op-ed about exactly that issue, Ted. For me, one of my serious objections is the use of the word traitor or the word treason. Treason has a very specific constitutional meaning, right? It is to take up arms against your country in a time of war, and it is a death penalty offense. And we toss around this word like, oh, Trump's a traitor. Oh, Hillary Clinton's a traitor. No, they're not traitors. Just because you don't like their politics or you disagree with their position on the issues or you disagree with their style, their political style, doesn't mean that they should be put to death by firing squad, which is what the punishment for treason is. And, once we normalize vocabulary like that, it's a slippery slope to chaos, in my view.
John, we have some, a manifesto identifying numerous lawmakers and public officials as possible targets was found in the car that was driven by the shooter who killed Minnesota State Rep Melissa Hortman, as well as her husband, and wounded State Senator John Hoffman. That, according to the Brooklyn Park, Minnesota police chief. People might remember Brooklyn Park as a hotbed of intrigue and violence during the BLM protests.
That's where Jesse Ventura was the mayor.
that too, right? I don't think I've ever knowingly been to Brooklyn Park. He was dressed in a police uniform and driving an SUV outfitted with emergency lights that was tricked out to look like a squad car. Of course, anyone with $40 can buy those lights.
Yeah.
But it's it's interesting. I mean, obviously, we'll have to see the contents of the manifesto. Generally, I think when someone publishes a manifesto before they do something, they at least assume there's a strong possibility that they're going to wind up dead at the end of the day, and they want to explain themselves and their motives. Right. So hopefully the guy doesn't have a death wish and doesn't plan to take anyone with him more than he's already, more damage than he's already done. This would suggest someone with military training, though, to me. Most of the time, when someone works themselves into a lather, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to kill this person, they go and do it, and they're horrified by how ugly it is to kill a human being and blow holes into, a person's skin and see all their fluids pour out as they're screaming and begging for their life. They don't go across town and then do it again. That's unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. This was well thought out. It was planned in advance. And I think that makes it even more dangerous. So we're probably not talking about some just, nut who's an escapee from a mental institution. This is somebody who put thought into this and got up yesterday morning thinking, today I'm going to kill a whole bunch of people. Frightening.
Yeah. So, are we going to see more of this sort of thing? I mean, it just seems like in this kind of political atmosphere, we will. I mean, I'd be surprised if we don't.
I hate to say it, but I've got to agree with you. We're in a position, or we're in a period right now where we are so seriously divided as a country that these acts of extremism are becoming normalized. And that scares the daylights out of me.
And then I always wonder about, the kind of, the one person who's best situated to tamp this down as the president of the United States with the platform that he has. And he did issue the requisite, political. Governor Walz said, there's no place we don't solve our problems with violence, but we do solve our problems with violence every single day.
Every day.
We attack foreign countries with violence.
Did you see what the sheriff said in Florida yesterday? That if there are any demonstrations in his county, I'm the law in this county, that kind of Buford Pusser kind of attitude. And he said, if somebody throws a single stone or a single brick, we're going to kill him. It's like, yeah, that's first degree murder. You can't do that. Yeah.
And that's crazy.
It's crazy. Yes.
Like you're supposed to be bringing the temperature down. Like it could be seriously, when have you heard something like the following? I haven't heard it in years, like from law enforcement or from a politician. Police officers are your brothers, your fathers, your sisters. They are friends. They're peace officers. They're not here to make your life miserable here. They're trying to protect you, and they risk their lives to do it. Don't throw things at them. They're here to help you. You're on the same team. Nobody talks like that.
No, nobody talks like that.
It's adversarial. I mean,
yeah,
I don't
welcome
understand
to Florida. Oh, it's so true. Tyler Travesty. Welcome to Florida. Yep. Hate to say it. That's Florida.
Yeah, and this is true. Yeah. All right. So, and I think before we bring in our guest, we should talk, just say there was a question in the chat. You answered it in the chat about your columns. People are asking where they can find them. The Consortium News and Covert Action Magazine, and sometimes at Sheer Post. And if you care about mine, you can find them at Creators Syndicate and in the Wall Street Journal and at raw.com. All right. So let's go ahead and do it. John, why don't you go ahead and I'll introduce Sean.
Sure. We have a friend, Sean. Sean is a professor at Yale Law School, and he is one of the smartest people I have ever encountered in my life. Sean and I worked together at a tech startup over the last several years, and he went into business for himself doing tech development that I don't even understand. He has shown me how to use a lot of it. And man, there's something to this. And so we talked briefly, and actually Ted and I were talking about this before we started the segment, about security. You go overseas and you come back from overseas and you enter the US at one of the airports and they say, give me your cell phone, give me your laptop, your iPad. And the courts have ruled that you've got to turn it over and you've got to open it up with whatever, your thumbprint, your eye, whatever. Well, there's a way to get around that. Now, Tucker Carlson on his show has been promoting this phone. It's actually quite expensive. It's like $1,200. And Sean and I were talking about it a couple of weeks ago. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I was going to spend the $1,200 just for peace of mind. And Sean talked me out of it because you don't get peace of mind. They can still get in it. It's cheap. It's a piece of junk. And Sean has developed some technology that I think everybody ought to know about. So Sean, welcome to the show. Sean O'Brien joins us from Yale.
Thank you so much, John.
Good to see you, man.
Incredible intro as always, and just incredible to get that kind of kudos from you. And thank you so much, Ted, for having me as well. Just to give a bit more about my background and sort of get into the details here, the nitty gritty. So yes, I am an associate research scholar and I teach cybersecurity at Yale Law School, a bunch of other places as well. I also founded an initiative called Yale Privacy Lab, which some folks may be familiar with. And we basically train people how to protect themselves online. We also look into different types of malware and spyware, and specifically we focus on mobile devices. So therefore, that's where the background sort of comes as far as caring about the device that you have in your pocket and are traveling with, right? So outside of teaching, I build private and secure technology. It's all open source technology, so it's all auditable. And we try to make sure that we are living up to our word, right? We really, really care about making sure we're delivering folks what we're promising. So that's if you're in a high risk situation, or if you're hanging out on the couch, or whatever you're up to, you deserve privacy, right? And I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have strong opinions on that front as well. So Ted, John, and I, we're working together on a new project called Ivy Cyber, IVY Cyber, CYBER.com. And we have some really, really bold ambitions for that. Basically, it's an umbrella for a number of different initiatives that Ted, John, and I have been working on. It's going to bring in the software projects, the secure software and the privacy respecting software that I've been working on with a small but dedicated international team, as well as the educational projects John is going to be driving, and we're going to talk about one of those today. And then also an exciting new media initiative, and that'll be driven very much by Ted and with his editorial vision, and that'll include podcasts and articles and hopefully some really awesome stuff. I intend to contribute some research into malware and spyware, the kinds of things I do at Privacy Lab. So for those of you who are interested in getting more of us, there will be a lot more of us. So that's great. So basically, we've been working on awesome stuff. We've contributing in different ways. That united initiative allows us to sort of bring that energy together, pool our resources rather than sort of working, separately in our own backyards. We can bring all that stuff together. So we'll be announcing a wide variety of stuff this month, a wide variety of projects, starting with seminars with John, exclusive seminars, and also secure hardware and privacy protecting software, which John alluded to. And I've got a little preview of that here. This is the little tablet device, and I'll keep it mysterious like a big black slab. But basically, we're going to take this to Spain, John and I, to a tech summit conference at the end of the month. And we're going to be basically live blogging our experiences traveling with the device. So that certainly is something that a lot of folks are asking me about, something I care deeply about, crossing borders, being able to wipe your data from the device you're handling, but have it in a trusted place that's not owned by an Amazon, by a Google, by, a Dropbox, right? By the big tech intermediaries. It's a huge, huge issue. So that's going to be awesome, but we'll get into that, I think, a little later in the month, and there'll be a lot coming out about that. To kick off this new Ivy Cyber initiative, we're going to be delivering those exclusive online seminars, and we're calling those the CIA POV. Appropriately enough. And they're going to be based on a number of things that John has written. And if these go well, and we expect them to, we're working on a curriculum that we're going to broaden everything out into a larger sort of multi-week curriculum where you can sort of get access to the amazing knowledge that John has. And then also we're going to steep it in real world examples and talk about the technological aspects of that.
Sean, we have a question from a viewer. When does the beta version come out?
The beta version of the software. So if you go onto ivycyber.com now, you can sign up for what we're calling early access. And then you can get a subscription, which will kick in October. However, we're free and open source software folks, right? We really, really believe on everybody having access to our stuff now. You actually can go out to privacysafe.app. Ted, if you could type that into the chat for everybody, that'd be great.
I'm doing that now.
Privacysafe.app, or just go to ivycyber.com and you will find links to the free versions of the app for right now. You can download it, you can run it, you can play around with it. Our team dog foods it, so to speak, right? We make sure that we're using our stuff. We also pushed out, that's terrible. We delivered and deployed really awesome free web apps this month. So if you go, for example, to privacysafe.locker, you can see a really good example of the kinds of concepts we are going to be delivering to the desktop. At Privacy Safe Locker, for example, if you upload, let's say, a PDF document that you need to share with a friend, it actually encrypts that document with a encryption key that's completely on your browser side, on your client side. So the server doesn't know it. Okay, it's all with you. With the keys are with you, right? And on the server end, it's completely scrambled, just encrypted bits. Now you can share that link with a friend, even if it's sort of a dodgy channel, right? You can send it in an email and have the confidence that that link is going to self-destruct after 24 hours. So it allows you to share things that you may just want to temporarily let someone know about. Not the most sensitive stuff in the world. I wouldn't say whistleblow with this stuff, please don't. But there are some other tools we can talk about in that context too. But you could send, for example, I don't know, a business document that you don't want to just attach to an email because it'll live in that email inbox forever, right? Or you could attach some document that you just, for whatever reason, you don't want to persist out there, right? Maybe you're sharing a book, right? A textbook or something like that with a friend. And you can share short videos as well and notes, memos. So potentially, this solves the problem of first contact, which is a big issue. Yeah.
Question: Does it clear your data if seized, or does it just lock up the device?
So there's a few different things we're talking about at once here. If we're talking about the tablet, and I think we should do a deeper dive into the tablet. Basically, the tablet has a secure operating system on it. It's full disk encrypted. And the apps the privacy safe apps on the tablet also keep your data encrypted, but synced optionally to a server. So you could basically hand it off to the feds and say, here, have fun, right? You can wipe the whole thing. You can have the assurance that what you're working on is actually synced in a fully encrypted way so that you can get it later, right? If you use those apps now, if you were to go out and grab those apps now and run them on your machine, on your device, it's also storing the files and communication. It's a chat app. It does video chat. It does storage. It's storing it as encrypted bits on your hard drive. So even if you're using it on a device that is not as trustworthy as it should be, you have the confidence of knowing that your communications inside of the apps are scrambled, so to speak, and scrambled in such a way that if you log out of Privacy Safe, log out of the applications, and somebody notices that you were using the thing, they won't be able to do anything with that data, right? It's just scrambled bits. So that's that one thing. The web applications are a little different. You play around with those on your own. There's some good explainers out there on the web as well. And please, please, please reach out to me if you're interested in this sort of stuff. I'm happy to be a resource, and we'll be publishing a lot more around it.
We've been asked about the OS. It's Linux, yeah? And
yes, of course, it's Linux.
Yeah. Please explain the of course for people who don't
that's
know.
Important.
Sure. So I'm a big open source guy, free and open source software. I've been working with, for example, Linux-based operating systems for a little over 20 years now. It's extremely important that our software is able to be vetted and is published publicly so that we know that there's no backdoors in it, for example, right? But also, software improves tremendously if you have it published and there's so-called a lot of eyeballs on it, right? If a lot of people care about a piece of software, they're actively using it, and folks are looking at the source code and sharing it, then the software improves. It gets better and better and better. So this thing called Linux and open source, right, basically took over the world of software in the last 20 years. And it actually runs on all kinds of things that you don't know it runs on, right? And a lot of those things have layers on top of them, which unfortunately are locked down, proprietary, and often insecure. So, for example, an Android phone is based on Linux, but it has a bunch of googly crap on top of it that spies on you, right? But there are ways to take Android, strip it way down, take all that googly stuff out, and then run it on the same hardware, and then not have that surveillance problem. What our tablet does is it has a custom, well-vetted, secure version of a popular Linux operating system. We're calling it Privacy Safe OS. We're making sure we're balancing sort of security and serious, high risk concerns with making sure it's usable, right? So it does have a web browser. It does have a word processor on there. And, you can, for example, open presentations and so on and so forth. But it's shipping with our apps, which are really, really locked down, which are zero knowledge and have very strong encryption. Those privacy safe apps, if you communicate with those, share with those, you get that extra assurance on top of having an operating system that you can trust, basically.
Quick question also, and I really do love this question from Nick. Can you, let's say you have your tablet, you're coming into an unfriendly airport, let's call that airport JFK, and you're about to be taken to a back room, so you nuke your tablet so the bad guys at BCE can't get into it. Is your data gone forever and ever, or is it backed up anywhere, like in a cloud or something else?
So these are exactly the use cases we're working on. And that's partially from my own experience. I've done quite a bit of international travel. I do get the triple S for going into secondary. I might pass often. I know all about it, of course. Oh, yeah. And we'll see what happens when we go to Spain. That's part of the reason we're sort of doing this, right? We want to prove by doing. So we are building in panic buttons, basically. We're building in functionality that will try to sync and back up as quickly as possible and then wipe the device. Mm-hmm. Of course.
That's a slow process, right? I mean, you're, especially in an airport where everybody's competing for bandwidth on LTE or whatever. I mean, I'm sure we've all had the experience of trying to just make a phone call, and it was slow as hell.
Yep. So the two things we're doing to try to confront that, first off, it's a slow process if you're not consistently backing up, right?
Right.
So if your most recent data from the last couple of hours, if that's all you're worrying about, it's not as big of a deal, right? But the second part of it is we're actually working on bundling the device with a hard drive, a small hard drive, or a USB key with relatively large storage, which can be challenging, of course. And then having that basically sync a backup and be full disk encrypted, which is totally something you can do. Now, you still have the issue if somebody takes that USB key or that hard drive and tosses it in the trash, you've lost the data. So we can't work magic, or I'll put it this way, maybe we can do magic, but we can't work miracles.
So frequent, yeah. So let's just say, like, you backed up before you got on the plane, but what you worked on while you were on the plane might be toast.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay. Right. That's right.
And that's the reason we're kind of also thinking about education and training alongside this. There are a lot of folks out there who have thought about these problems, who have delivered, with reasonable success, different versions of secure or semi-secure hardware, semi-secure software. But the main sticking point is that training piece. I kind of find that these conversations happen between quote unquote normal people, but we don't see a lot of it online. We don't see a lot of people going, oh man, I had this happen to me when I went through the border. If only I could have done this, right? If only I could have just backed up the photos that I took at the beach before I hopped on the plane. What we're going to recommend, of course, is that you try to travel with a device that's as blank as possible. And I think through going through this process together, John and I are going to have a very interesting experience. I mean, we'll see what happens going through the airports, but I know John has a tendency to get harassed for obvious reasons.
I was strip searched last time I flew to Iceland, and I'm going to Iceland in a couple of days again.
Just because you're cute.
I'm not looking forward to it. Yeah, that's what it is.
It's if you quit dressing like a slut,
Oh, it's just, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I should have strip searched him when he was up here at Yale. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, we'll do our best to provide real, tangible, serious, real-world advice based on our own experiences. I'm going to be documenting that. I think it's going to be fun in some ways. It's going to make an experience which is harrowing and terrible. Hopefully, something that can be useful. And from sort of an engineering standpoint, we can't solve all of our problems with technical solutions, but I think a combination of technical solutions that are strong, that can get into people's hands at a reasonable price also, like don't cost them, thousands and thousands of dollars. And also that training piece, that education piece, If we can do that, I think a lot of people and organizations and certainly activists would be a lot stronger. So yeah, that's what we're going to be working on. I don't want to get too much more into the hardware. Please reach out to me. I think Ted and John and I will.
Let's talk about the software a little bit if you have time. Yeah.
Sure. So the software is, again, open source, and it's based on a set of protocols we've been working on with IEEE, which is a big standards organization. We're not yet shepherding it through the standardization process because that takes an enormous amount of time and energy and cash. But we are working on it in the standards groups from those sort of preliminary phases in the IEEE SA Open. And those standards, again, not only are they open, but they're strong, right? They use very strong encryption to basically federate between different users. So, for example, you can actually set up a piece of privacy-safe infrastructure, a server, let's say, with your domain, let's say, for your organization, and then tie it to our apps.
Yes.
So you don't have to use our syncing service, right? We're going to have our syncing service. We expect most folks who download the app are going to use it, but you can set up inside your own organization your own infrastructure. And in fact, of course, we'll help you do that. So we're trying to think about solving some of the issues that we saw come to the fore with the so-called signal gate situation. Everybody's working from home. Everybody's BYOD, right? Bringing their own disk, bringing their own device. And then we're all just using this hodgepodge of tools, right? Signal and these other things. And you don't even know if the person using Signal on the other end is using an approved version of Signal or the real quote unquote version of Signal, or as it turns out, P-Texas was using a dodgy fork of Signal that was made by an Israeli firm and had all kinds of issues. So,
or if you're using it with a BBC cameraman right behind your phone.
That's right.
Well, there you go.
Right,
that's the operational.
That privacy is not that totally encrypted as you would want.
Yeah. So everybody's got this problem. Like if I start an org, right? How do we communicate with each other? How do we have a nice, simple suite of a communication suite that we can trust? How do we tie to our access controls, to our infrastructure? That's what we really want to do with that privacy safe suite. And you can check it out at privacysafe.app. We'll have some more materials about the business context soon. We expect that organizations, not just small teams of activists, but even large organizations, are going to be quite interested in solving this dilemma. The other thing is, of course, most attacks are coming through via email, right? Still around 90% of attacks come through phishing through email, ransomware through email, et cetera, et cetera. So having solutions that reduce your so-called attack surface, right, from email are really important. And one of the apps we have, which is basically like the chat app, but an email-like interface instead. It looks like a real email inbox, but uses strong encryption, which email doesn't use. It's not by default. That inbox app, we're really excited about. We want folks to communicate with the other folks inside their organization or potentially other organizations using the same application, using that email inbox interface, right? And then being able to also still send normal emails to the outside world. And we just mark them differently, right? We say these ones are strongly encrypted. This is between me, Ted, and John, this chain, strongly encrypted with our privacy safe inbox, right? Our privacy safe mail. But to the outside world, we send an email. Okay, now it's not strongly encrypted. And just understanding that too changes sort of your operational security posture, what you
Makes
share,
total
what
sense.
you share. Yeah.
Makes total sense. This is, I think, super important. People hear us talking about things like Linux that most Americans, if they do use it, but they don't know. Is this something, I know the answer to this, but talk about the interface. Is this like intuitive, or do people need a degree in computer science from Yale in order to be able to use it?
No.
Good question.
It's extremely simple, the software. I think the question may also be asking about the seminars and the classes, so I'll try to answer both of those things. I see myself as an educator primarily. I've spent my entire life training folks since I was a teen working with computers, how to use computers. And it's really important to me to make sure that so-called mainstream or normal folks can use what I build, what we teach. So we really do, I think, have a good way of communicating that. I'm teaching all the time at different institutions. I go to public libraries and do seminars and so on and so forth. And we're able to not only use the applications I'm talking to you about, but also, I mean, John was just up here for a workshop that we did at a public space in New Haven. And yeah, it was great. And also it was not hard to get the message across. John has a way, of course, of imparting his stories without getting into too much, insider stuff. So for the folks, I think, who want insider CIA, lingo and so on.
I do.
Yeah, there'll be enough of that, but they'll be able to also hook into those ideas. And the same thing with the technical, right? We want to make sure, like somebody asked us about Linux, that we can answer that question, right? And it also demonstrates that we know what we're doing, which we do. But we also, we never want to start there. So yeah. So John, why don't you tell us a little bit about the CIA POV workshops, what we're going to be offering there, and then we can just sort of get into that plan, and then I think we can get back into the questions.
Yeah, several years ago, at the start of COVID, Skyhorse Publishing commissioned me to write a series of books. I wrote one to start things off called The CIA Insider's Guide to the Iran Crisis. And then they wanted another 3, The CIA Insider's Guide to Surveillance and Surveillance Detection, The CIA Insider's Guide to Lying and Lie Detection, and the CIA Insider's Guide to Disappearing and Living Off the Grid. And so, to make a long story short, you and I decided that it might be helpful to do these books as seminars, so that people could ask questions while we're in the midst of it, in a chat on the side like we have right here, and we could make the presentation specific to the issues and concerns that people have. So we're gonna do the first one soon, the CIA Insider's Guide to Surveillance and Surveillance Detection, and we're going to schedule it so that people can essentially choose when they want to hear it, and that's going to come up very soon.
Yeah, so I think you can see my screen, right, Ted? Or no?
Let's see. Yeah, let me add that. See if I can do that.
Great.
Okay, here we go.
So if you go out to ivycyber.com button, you'll see what John's talking about. It shows his experience here. I mean, he's such a humble person, but not only was he at a high-ranking, he was a high-ranking counterterrorism official. He was there for years at the CIA. I mean, you don't get to that point without being there for years, of course. He did a lot of work in intelligence and operations after that, some work in the private sector as well. But he just has all this experience on both sides of the wire, as I've been calling it, and the perspective of seeing now how things have developed and sort of being deeply involved in movements and speech and all these other issues that Ted and John talked about at the top of the show and the top of every show, right? So that to me is very priceless. If you click this big orange button, you'll see we have an introductory, about $200, a little less, for the seminar to get one seat, but exclusive access to this small group seminar, where you're not only going to learn from John, you'll be able to do Q&A as well. So just like you're asking questions now in this room, of course, but face-to-face potentially, you'll be able to talk to John, and you'll be able to do it in a live teleconferencing environment, video conferencing environment that I set up, which doesn't spy on you. And that environment will allow us to basically not only teach, but hopefully have a little bit of community building as well, where like-minded folks who signed up for this thing, right, you'll be able to keep in touch with them if you choose to, and you'll be able to basically stay up on everything else that we're releasing as time goes on. So if you do choose, of course, to reserve a seat for this seminar, we're going to release a schedule. John's a busy guy. He's all over the place. We're going to these conferences and stuff. It's most likely going to start in mid-July. And we're going to do these 90-minute sessions. And partially, we're going to be learning along with you, just like I'm learning now, the issues that you care about and what you want to hear. We'll be able to adapt also, obviously, with the current news, just like this show does. And basically, we're going to keep this going as long as folks are interested in it, as long as we have material to teach. What we don't want to do is do the Coursera, massive online, whatever, shove you in something.
No.
We want to make sure it has that personal touch. And of course, John will be providing that. So if you sign up for this, basically, you'll get your ticket. We'll keep in touch with you. We'll say, hey, here's the dates. Then you're going to go out to the website again. You're going to pick the dates. You're going to basically pick your seat, so to speak. And then you'll just go out to a link and hang out with us. And it should be a lot of fun. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot. And if any of you know me, you know that I sometimes have trouble stopping once I start talking. So, so 90 minutes is a suggestion, I think.
Yeah. I didn't want to put you on the hook for more than that, but I could have put, 260. Yeah. And
so bring coffee.
And the exciting part, at least for me, I've done these kinds of things before for a number of different programs. We actually had a similar type of thing for Oxford University, cybersecurity for business leaders, where basically we brought in experts from MIT and other places to be able to impart their knowledge and so on with these almost like fireside chat kind of things. So we're going to be learning, but also getting in early means not only do you get a good introductory price, but you're going to see and contribute to the building of this thing, right? Instead of coming in later and getting something which is sort of, I don't know, more dedicated to one specific topic, we'll be able to go, I think, a little more orthogonally into a number of different places. So that's going to be part of the fun, being able to ask questions, being able to spitball, basically. So.
Awesome. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it very much.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody else out there, thank you so much for joining us here on DeProgram. We hope you consider yourself totally and thoroughly deprogrammed, but we'll be back to pick up the pieces on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'm Ted Rall. That's John Kiriakou, Sean O'Brien from Yale University. Thank you so much for joining us. And goodbye, everyone. See you next week.